Hi, welcome to today's reading vlog live from my living room. How you doing? So today we're doing another spoiler vlog. We're doing a spoiler vlog for Chain of Thorns. Basically, if you want to know my history with the Last Hour series, all you gotta know is that 3 years ago now, I read Chain of Gold, did a spoiler video, hate that video, and never continued on with the series after that as books were as the second book release and stuff because I didn't want to do a spoiler vlog and I felt like I needed to. So instead I just put off reading the series, and then this third book just came out and I was like, I can't keep pushing it off, and therefore I reread the first book in a spoiler-free vlog, and I loved it so much, and it kind of motivated me again to actually try and do spoiler videos. So when I read Chain of Iron, the second book, I did a spoiler vlog. I really like how that turned out. I hope you did as well if you watched it. If not, go watch it. And yeah, now we're here reading Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare and doing a reading vlog about it. I'm probably the last person on your feed doing it because I am a bit behind, but I am very excited to give this a read. Like I said, this will contain spoilers, so leave. Just so you know, I also do, in case you haven't seen any of these videos before, but you are here for the spoilers, I have this character chart for the series, which I'll pop up right here. That is how we left it off at the end of Chain of Iron, and I'll be adding to it while reading this book. But yeah, I'm gonna be starting this today, and I think I'll read you like every 100 pages. Hi, I am 100 pages into Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, so I thought I'd give you an update. The tabbing is very sparse. Not a fan. I'm just gonna tell you, so far not a whole lot has happened because all of our characters are in very different places, so we're trying to bring them together. We have a prologue in which we learn that James is having nightmares from Belial again, so that's fun. Nothing's happening really in them though, so it wasn't really worth mentioning, but that's something that's happening. Then we move to Cordelia and Matthew in Paris as Cordelia is trying on dresses, and again nothing happens here. Also, by the way, I have my window open, so if there's a lot of background noise, that's that. The one thing we do learn in this section is that Matthew has kept his promise to Grace and hasn't been drinking any alcohol while they're there, which is great, but like they also mentioned that he hasn't had any like withdrawal symptoms or something, so that's a little bit concerning to me. And then we're back to James, who's out at Magnus and Will trying to find Lucy, of course. And basically because he's been having nightmares, apparently he also like talks in his sleep, which has Will and Magnus like concerned because of the things like he's saying. Basically like James tells them everything that happened besides the Cordelia Lilith stuff. That's something he doesn't tell them. Then we're going back to Lucy, who is knocked out by turning Jesse back to life, which I don't like. And then we're in Ariadne's perspective, where something does happen, which isn't that big of a deal, but we find out that her father, the Inquisitor, has been gone for 5 days and no one has heard anything from him, which I find concerning because at the end of the last book we find out that Tatiana has escaped, so we should have heard something. But there's nothing happening, and because Ariadne is kind of concerned, she goes to her father's office and she finds like this bundle of paper in the fire, and on one of the pieces of paper kind of like it keeps track of like a bunch of things that the Herondales and the Lightwoods did that are like kind of like going against the law or like doing something wrong, but like they're not really that big of a deal, so that's concerning. And then chapter 2 opens with Lucy waking up and seeing that Jesse's alive, and I don't like it here. And then we go to Christopher and Thomas. This is something fun that Christopher is doing. He is trying to find a way to communicate long distance, which he says is inspired by like basically the telephone being invented. And Thomas, the dear sweet soul he is, writes this like very like not long note, it's relatively short, but like this note delving into his feelings with Alistair, and they send it off expecting it to not work like most of the experiments have. And I say that because that's going to come in back. Then we have Grace, and she's confessing about her powers to the Silent Brothers, and Jem is basically like, hey, we're not gonna prosecute you or do anything because we don't want Tatiana to know that we know, so that we can get information out of her through you. And then we're back to Lucy, who talks to Malcolm about Annabelle, and this is why I have an issue with Jessie being brought back to life, no matter how to explain it, because at a certain point Malcolm says Annabelle's death was no less unjust, no less monstrous than what happened to Jessie. She deserves to live again, no less than he. Of that I am certain. And Lucy says that she disagrees with that because the fatal difference between that and Jessie is that Jessie had a preserved body, which is like, yeah, because T'Challa managed to bring him back to life from the second he died. Like, the morality around necromancy is just so messed up, because I said this in my previous vlog for this series, is that I'm not gonna spoil the Dark Artifices. I'm not. But I have a hard time reading this, what Malcolm just said, because I agree with him. There is no reason that it's just to bring Jessie back to life and not Annabelle. He's right in that. They both died in a horrendous way that should not have happened. And just knowing what happened in the Dark Artifices, I have a hard time reconciling with this is okay and this isn't, because the explanation behind it is the same. And where do you draw that line? And I feel like Cassandra Clare has not done a good enough job at that, especially even if you just focus on Jessie. Like, Tatiana is evil and hysteric for trying to bring Jessie back to life, but Grace and Lucy just love him and it's the right thing to do. Like, how does that make sense? Like, the morality around bringing Jessie back to life, it's so muddled up, and I wish that Cassandra Clare did a little bit more work trying to explain to me why it's different this time around, and she didn't. So now we're back to Cordelia and Matthew go to the Cabaret de l'Enfer. I'm so sorry, my French is terrible. And there is this warlock who says she can talk to spirits, and in this, actually, we get a message from Cordelia's father, in which he says, "In time there will be sorrow, but not regret. There will be quiet, but not peace. They wake. If I can tell you nothing else, let me tell you this: they are waking. It cannot be stopped." And then Cordelia asks, "Who is waking?" And Elias answers, "Not we. We who are already dead. We are the lucky ones." And then the warlock collapses to the ground. And this is concerning because in the dream that we did get from Belial, there were like things swirling around and we don't know what it is. And then he says they have awoken or something like that. It's like the fact that that's also something that Elias is referencing is a bit concerning. Then we're back to Malcolm and Lucy, and Jessie, and they're talking about basically what Lucy and Jessie are gonna do with their lives. And then as they're kind of like fighting about that, because they always fight about everything, like, will Magnus and James show up? Because I said this one, Malcolm was gone, he's not in the scene. We go back to James this time around, and they learn everything there is to know about Jessie there. And again here, something, this is so annoying, is that Lucy says, "You deserve to have your life, the one that Tatiana tried to steal from you." That's not what happened. Tatiana did not try to steal his life away from him. Why are you conflating what's happening here? And eventually they do kind of like justify what happened there, because Jessie is not actually dead. It's a live spirit and a live body, and they just were disconnected from each other. And that's such a stupid explanation. I'm sorry. He died. There was no disconnecting of his spirit to his body. No, he factually passed away. That's what we saw happen on paper. We have Ariadne arriving at Anna's place, being all distressed and being like, "I didn't know where I could go." And Anna was having a party and she immediately throws everyone out. And Ariadne was kicked out of the house because she found the papers, and her mom found out about that. And part of the papers was also this letter that it's like mostly burned, so they don't know a lot. But it's very concerning because it seems like the Inquisitor was blackmailing someone, we don't know who, to go against the Herondales and the Lightwoods. And then like her mom like found out that she found the papers, and then her mom was like, "Oh, like Cordelia tried to be like upset about it," and her mom was like, "You should be like a good daughter and like not be concerned about that. Don't you should be concerned about just getting married." And he's like, "No, I'm not getting married because I'm a lesbian," and not like that, but he's like, "I'm not getting married, I'm not interested in men." And then, you know, her mom is a bit homophobic and she runs away, which we love that for her. Now she has come to Anna because she hopes that Anna can like show her what it's like to live independently, and Anna is upset because Ariadne just came to her for like to be a listening ear and to help, and I was just like, I thought you came to me for another reason, and it just, that's cute. We have Jem coming to James to tell him about what's happening with Grace, in which James is being an asshole, which I understand that he feels betrayed by what happened with Grace and that he's hurt and like he has every right to, but like also he's such an ass. I don't want to kill him, not kill him, but like I am very upset at him. And then we also have Thomas, who got a note from Alistair and then like to like come over to him to talk, and like Thomas, and his sweet soul that he is, just completely just like freaks out because he's so deeply like not in love, but like he has this very deep crush on Alistair, and it's just like, what's going on? And he's trying to like look the best and everything, and he arrives and Alistair is covered in demon ichor, I think that's how you pronounce it, I'm so sorry. And turns out that demons have been very much after him because he's been carrying Cortana everywhere since Cordelia left her with him because he doesn't want anything to happen to the sword. Demons have been attacking him non-stop, which is also concerning. And like the reason actually why he sent a note to Thomas is that he received the note from Thomas, but it was like half burned up. So the note itself just said, "Dear Alistair, why are you so stupid? I brush my teeth, don't tell anyone, Thomas." Which is hilarious because the original note was like a deep confession of his feelings. Then it went down to that. And Alistair was just very confused. And Thomas was just like, that was just an experimental Christopher, you will never get to see that. Bye. Not bye. He just like very quickly like changes the focus back on the demons that are after Thomas. And then Cordelia basically just tells Matthew like, hey, I want to go back to that place we went because I want to know that was actually my father. So that's something that's gonna happen. And that's it. Oh wait, Lucy doesn't, like James doesn't tell Lucy that Grace was controlling him, but he does tell her that he was never in love with Grace and he does actually love Cordelia, and that's where we stand with this book. So a lot of interpersonal drama and I'm not interested. Because generally what we're focusing on the most that is plot related is Jesse and his being resurrected, which like valid, but like I already made it obvious that I do not care about it, so I don't like it. And then on top of that, it's feeling stuff, and the only couples that I talked about that I care about right now are Ariadne and Anna, and then Thomas and Alistair, because I don't think Cassandra did a great job at setting up any of the others. Like James and Cordelia is done pretty decently, but then right now we're kind of more focusing on like Matthew and Cordelia and like Matthew's feelings for Cordelia, and I'm like, that was so poorly developed, no offense, so I don't like that. And then also again Lucy and Jesse, which is so poorly developed as well, and I don't understand how Cassandra and Clare can create a beautiful romance like Thomas and Alistair and Anna and Ariadne in like such little time in these books, and I'm so invested in them, but then the couples like Lucy and Jesse that spent like so much time together, I don't care about it. I don't think their feelings were developed well. I don't think it was done well, so I don't know where like that imbalance is there. But yeah, I am gonna read 100 more pages and hopefully I'll have some actual plot to talk to you about. Okay, so I read another 100 pages of Shane of Thorns, so let's talk. Spoiler alert, I don't have positive thoughts. So we left off with Malcolm trying to like come up with an excuse for why Jesse is alive, because he can't just say, you know, that Jesse is alive because that raises too many questions. So they come up with this fact that there was a brother of Annabelle who, you know, went to the States and kind of renounced the whole Shadowhunter thing and stepped out of the clave and stuff, and he had 3 children, I believe Malcolm says, but like the clave doesn't have any records of it because, you know, he's stepped out of the clave and stuff like that, but Malcolm does know that he had kids, so they tried to play off Jesse as one of those kids. Then we are back in Paris with Cordelia and Matthew. It's like very hard to keep track of because where I am, it's much further. They are back in Paris and they tried to go back to like that thing they went to where the ghost of Cordelia's father allegedly appeared, and to check if it's like actually a photo and not something else. They arrive there and they're not allowed in because the guard recognized Cordelia as a paladin to Lilith, and it's like, you cannot come in here because of that. That's sus. And generally I can't stand like Cordelia's self-pity with this. Like, it's so annoying because yes, I get feeling like really stupid and like tricked and unworthy because you were like fooled by Lilith, but like she is acting like she actively chose to be a Lilith's paladin, and therefore no one around her can love her anymore or like deserves her. And I'm like, you're being stupid. And then actually demons attack. Like, Cordelia has to defend herself and Matthew. Lilith shows up and is basically, I think, upset that there was no Cortana with Cordelia anymore. And then Matthew and Cordelia have a moment and something happens that's really stupid, and that's that Cordelia says, I would like you to kiss me, and they kiss. And in a moment that grows bigger, but like, I'll leave it at this. I think that's so stupid because it's so obvious to me that Cordelia does not have feelings for Matthew, and like she knows that Matthew does have like genuine, legit, hardcore feelings for her. So she's just playing with him at this point, and I don't like it. We flash to Grace, who is still with the Seven Brothers, and Christopher shows up as a visitor, and that's such a cute moment. Like, Christopher and Grace are so precious together, mainly because Christopher is just like a precious person, and like he is like the first person to like actually see Grace for who she is, and it is always so precious. And he asks her help with the notes that he's working on, so like the long distance communication. Like, he gives her his like scientific research on everything to see if she can see what, you know, is preventing things from happening. Then we go back to Cordelia and Matthew kissing. This is a pretty picture. I do have to say, it's a pretty illustration. At least we got that out of it. I don't like it, but like, they're making out to go to the hotel. As they step into the hotel room, still very much making out, about to do something more. The light goes on and James is there. Because of course. And like, here is like my other proof that Cordelia is just playing with Matthew, because like this entire time that she is making out with Matthew, like she's thinking about James and how like she feels so like betrayed by him and like stuff like that, and that she wants to forget about James, and that like the kisses of Matthew are like making it disappear. And then like, you're just using him. That's what you're doing, and it's so unfair because we all know Matthew has been through the ringer and back. Like, he has had a rough life, so for you to just like so actively be playing with him, and I know that's not her intention, like she doesn't maliciously do it, but like it's still something that's happening, and it's so incredibly frustrating. Thomas and Alistair are hiding hiding Cortana at the Institute, and we don't fully know where either, so that's interesting. And like, it's so cute because Thomas is just like constantly questioning Alistair, and like Alistair gives Thomas his scarf because Thomas is cold, and it's just like so cute. And then Will, Magnus, Jesse, and Lucy come to a portal, and I have to say, Magnus and Will are my new favorite dynamic duo. They've cracked me up so much in this book. I love them so much. Then in the meantime, in Paris, James is still there. They're having a tiff because, you know, James did not expect Matthew and Cordelia to be making out when he was there, and Matthew and Cordelia did not expect James to be there. So like, it's a moment. James came to get Cordelia and Matthew because of, you know, Jesse and stuff being there, like having a meeting about what happened with Lucy and stuff like that. And what makes everything worse is that James has a bottle of alcohol on him. It's absent as well, which just hurts my heart. And like, James mentions that he got it out of Matthew's room, and Cordelia's like, that's not Matthew's, and like James is like, well, it was in his room. And it just like I felt it in my bones that when they mentioned that Matthew hadn't been drinking and there have been no withdrawal symptoms, I felt it coming that he was still drinking, but like, that's still very much hard to see happening. And then also, it's absinthe. That's such strong alcohol and like so dangerous, and I'm so concerned. When we get back into James's perspective, he mentions that he first went into Matthew's room when he arrived, and that like there were brandy and absinthe bottles like all over his room, and like lined upon like the windowsill, and was not hidden at all. And like, when Cordelia and Matthew were making out, and they're like, oh, we can do this like in the living room, we have to go like in one of the bedrooms, Matthew was just like, not in my room because it's messy. And I'm like, no, he didn't want it to go into their room because like he had alcohol there, not hidden. And it hurt my soul, even though I saw it coming. And then we got more of James just being absolutely stupid because he goes to talk to Cordelia and is basically like, I never loved Grace, I loved you. And Cordelia's like, yeah, well, you never made me notice that. And James is just like, you know what, I'm not gonna tell her about Grace putting like a spell on me because that might seem like an excuse and unbelievable. So instead, I'm just gonna say, well, I loved you anyway. I'm like, how stupid are you? You're just making it so difficult for yourself. Because of course Cordelia is not gonna believe you that you've been in love with her this entire time. Like, did your memory get erased of like the past 2 books? Do you not know how you've been acting this entire time? Like, of course she doesn't believe you that you just all of a sudden had a change of heart and are like, no, never loved Grace. No, that didn't do that. Just fucking explain it to her. Oh my god. We have Ariadne, Christopher, Anna, and Eugenia going on a mission to retrieve Ariadne's stuff from her parents' house, which is a really fun moment until almost after they've gone. Cordelia's dad shows up back from trying to see what's her face, Tajana, and he's like very wrecked. Stuff has gone on. We go back to Paris. We also find out that like someone at the hotel has been delivering a bottle of absinthe or brandy to Matthew every morning, and he says that when he was here before, he wanted in the evening, this visit early morning, which means that he did deliberately change it so that Cordelia didn't notice, which he knows what he's doing is wrong and he still did it, and I'm just And then something I hate is that Cordelia makes this all about her, and it's so frustrating because she gets like shocked that Matthew lied to her, and I was like, oh, how dare you lie to me? Like, everyone has lied to me in my life. My life sucks. I'm like, no, Matthew's life sucks. He has alcoholism. Then the whole bunch goes back to London through a portal that Magnus sent, which is great. When they arrive there, Cordelia starts thinking about the ramification of what running off with Matthew could mean for her in society, which is valid, and she does mention that for Matthew it would be different because he's a guy. But something that she says that is like so infuriating to me is this: she had not considered how it would look, not just to the whole gossiping enclave, but to her friends, to Lucy and to Thomas, Christopher, and Anna. They had been James's friends first, and Lucy was his sister. They would be loyal to him, discuss it with her. Like, do you really think that lowly of your friends? Like, your friends will very much have this reputation of not conforming to society, especially Anna. You would generally think they would be disgusted with you for running off to Paris with Matthew while you're married to James. Like, no one would give a fuck. I hate Cordelia so much at this moment in time. I'm so sorry. Then basically when they're back in London, they get the down low about what happened with the Inquisitor from Will, because apparently the Inquisitor is too run down to talk, even though he doesn't look run down at all. And basically what happened is that he went to the Adamant Citadel and he demanded to the Adamant sisters to talk to Tatiana, and they were like, oh, she's not here. And they were like, and she was like, wait, why is she not? And they're like, oh, like, she takes a walk every so often. Which, who said that? Cordelia? What? I might be mad at Cordelia, but she does rightfully say, why on earth did they like to do that? Because valid. They're like, well, there was just like nature around, like there's nothing there, like obviously you gotta let her walk around. Like, stupid. He camped out to try. No, first he put a tracker on her to try and find her, but the tracker like constantly went in loops and like stuff went awry, so that didn't really help. And then he camped out in front of the Citadel because you can go in there. Like, it amounted to nothing, obviously. Then he went to the Iron Tombs, which I don't know why, but while he was like outside there, he got visited by a demon who said like, stop looking for Tatiana. Then was also branded by Belial's logo, I guess. So, he went through something traumatic, I'm sure. It can be nice seeing the demon, I don't know, like, especially because it was like in a full form, like it's not like in disguise or anything. Like, I would be scared shitless. And then like the perplexing thing, there's something that she said that was perplexing, and that's, if you have any thought of sending a paladin after me, you will bring great doom upon the world. Which obviously the Inquisitor doesn't know what that means, but her friends do, and they're all very shocked. And then Matthew and Cordelia also find out about Jesse, which, again, this is a moment that Cordelia completely makes about her, and she's just like, oh, how dare I not know this? How dare Lucy not have told me anything? Like, I'm such a bad friend and potential parasite because I did not know this. I'm like, that was the fucking point that you did not know this. Then Cordelia decides to go home to her mom and Alistair instead of go home together with James, and James decides to stay in the institute for safety reasons, because they did put out warning signals to all the institute over the world because Satana's on the loose. And like on the carriage ride back to her house, Alistair tries to ask Cordelia about like her feelings and like if Matthew or James hurt her or whatever, and Cordelia is just like, I don't know what I'm feeling. Like we all know what you're feeling. You're in love with James. The only reason you want to admit it is because you don't know what James is feeling. You don't want to say you love him when he's in love with Grace. So this entire time, like, that's what it goes about. When you go into her inner monologue, she's always worried about how James is feeling, not necessarily about how Matthew's feeling or how she's feeling about Matthew. It's constantly like, oh, is James actually in love with me, or is he just like saying it because he just prefers to go after what he can get, is basically kind of like the theory that's going around now. And I'm like, the only reason you're straighting Matthew is alone is so that you have a backup plan if James does actually love Grace. That's the only reason we're doing this. You do not have feelings for Matthew, and I think it is such terribleness that she is pretending that she does, and like just constantly saying like, oh, I don't know what I feel for him, it's so complex. You do know, you feel nothing for him, it's pure friendship. And if it was, you know, this straighting along is terrible just in general, but like also just, again, just considering what Matthew has gone through, and like she knows the extent of Matthew's feelings. Like Matthew has not hidden that. It's so gross and disgusting, and I hate every second of it. And I don't think Cordelia can say that Matthew is a friend at this point, because he is just a toy to her, like a way to like get over James. That's it. That's really it. And then we also find out once she arrives home that her mom wants to move back to Persia, and Alistair has said to go along because he said, I don't have anything, like I don't have a reason to stay here like you do. And then again, Cordelia makes this whole situation about her, and it just, I hate it. And then Christopher goes to James and Thomas to Matthew so that they can figure out what went wrong in the friend group and try to mend it, you know? They also decide to have a meeting with like the friend group to like talk about everything with like Cordelia, Lilith, Cortana, Belial, just discuss what their plans are and what they're gonna do. So they do wind up the gang for that. And during this meeting, there's so many cute Alistair and Thomas moments, and I can't encounter them all to you, but they're so good. So yeah, at this meeting, there are a band of merry thieves, which are the guys. We have Cordelia, Lucy, Jessie, Ariadne, and Anna. That's the group. Oh, and Alistair as well. I forgot to say that. That's the group we have at this meeting. And they decide to do more research on what a paladin is and how they could potentially disconnect Cordelia and Lilith, because they do realize that the only way to defeat Belial is to strike him once more with Cassandra. That's like the best thing. They also decide to research more into that, and they're going to do that by going back to the place where Tatiana and Grace used to live, and they're gonna go there with Jessie to like, and because Jessie knows like the different hiding spots that Tatiana had, so these might be places that the Clave, while researching the home, skipped over because he didn't know to look there. And then at the end of the meeting, we also are in Cordelia's perspective, and she mentions that Matthew is hungover, which she sees as a bad thing, but I see as a good thing because that means he hasn't been drinking. And then Matthew goes over to Anna's, and they have like they try to have like a little talk. Here, this is annoying because Anna is going to put brandy in Matthew's coffee, and Matthew like first like goes to make a symbol to like stop her, but then like Anna looks at him weird because like that's something he never does, and then he just goes along with it and drinks it. I'm like, oh, we're so close, so close. And I'm just, oh, I want Matthew to live a happier life, and it's not happening right now, and it hurts. Oh yeah, and then also when Matthew is with Anna and Ariadne, they explain why Ariadne is there and not at home, and they talk about like finding a place to live for Ariadne because both Matthew and Anna live on their own. This is also like a stupid moment because in the meeting that they had together, and the whole group, James mentioned that he had a nightmare from Belial in which he mentioned like they've awoken, and then it's also a thing that the Inquisitor mentioned that was said to him. And then Cordelia in that moment in the meeting is like signals to Matthew like, don't tell anyone that we has like also experienced something like this. But then she goes to the institute with James, Jesse, and Lucy and tells them anyway. So I'm like, why didn't you just tell it in front of everyone? It's so stupid. It's just stupid for stupidity's sake. And I don't like it. And basically where we have ended is that they're being called down to dinner and Cordelia decides to leave and go back home. And that's what we know. So I don't know what this is gonna look edited down, but this is definitely the longest clip I have filmed for this reading vlog and also the last one, because I want to rant so much about Cordelia. I really don't like her at this point. I think she's so selfish and so stupid and so full of self-pity, and it's annoying because that doesn't need to be there. And therefore she's also like underestimating her friends and just honestly insulting them, and it's all an inner monologue, so like I guess it's decent, but like I hate it so much. I hate it so much. And then James is also being so stupid for just not telling Cordelia about Grace. And it's just, I want to wring their necks, genuinely. I hate them so much. I hate James and Cordelia at this moment so much. They frustrate me so incredibly much because there should be no reason why they are acting the way they are. Genuinely, it's just stupidity. Just blatant stupidity. And I hate it so much. And then like I said, I don't care about Jessie and Lucy, and that's taking up a lot of the plot right now. I want things I read from this book is Ariadne and Anna to get together, Thomas and Alistair to get together and be cute, happy, fun. Matthew to recover from his alcoholism finally, because I need it, and then he can live his happy life however he wants, just not with Cordelia, because Cordelia doesn't want him like that. And then I want, that's it. I don't care about the rest. Just throw them all in the trash. Hi, I've read another 100 pages and I don't have a lot of thoughts this time around, so hopefully this will be quick. So when we left off, I said that they were gonna have dinner, and at dinner they get a phone call from the institute in, where does it say? In Cornwall, and they have found Tachana all torn up, passed out. It's a thing. So there we go, she was found. Lucy and Cordelia have a fight, which is really stupid because Cordelia keeps saying, you don't know how much you hurt me by befriending Grace and not telling me about it. And I'm like, she didn't befriend Grace, they worked on the same goal. Like, they're not friends, they don't get along. It's fine. And the worst part is that at a certain point Cordelia is like, oh Lucy, it's like you don't live in a real world, you live in a world of stories. The beautiful Cordelia, we can do anything she likes, but in a real world we don't get everything we want. Maybe we shouldn't. And I'm like, bitch, you're not living in the real world, you're living in the me world. Like, you only care about yourself, only care about Cordelia and no one else. So shut the fuck up, okay? We have a romantic moment between Lucy and, well, first we have a fight between Lucy and Jessamine, which I also think is stupid. Like, I get that Jessamine is weirded out by the fact that Lucy can control ghosts. Like, that makes sense because she's a ghost. But the way she's been acting is just a bit over the top. But after that, Lucy goes to Jessie and they have like a little heart-to-heart moment and also a bit of a make-out moment. And here's something odd's happened because like Lucy kind of fades away in like a shadow realm type situation, like she's starting to see things, which is odd. And then we have Jessie visiting Grace. Grace tells her everything, which again, the way Jessie reacts is so stupid. I think that's so stupid that Jessie is so upset about this because he knows the complicated relationship Grace and Tatiana have and how Grace has been trying to belong with Tatiana and trying to fit in there, and he knows the kind of hold Tatiana has over Grace over these several years. Like, he's been there, he knows. He also knows that Tatiana isn't afraid to manipulate someone, and yet he just like doesn't understand that that's what could have happened with Grace. Like, honestly, like, why don't you, like, Grace says like, this was the only way like I could remain close to you, or like Tatiana tried to take me away from you, and like all of this stuff, like she manipulated me. And he was like, don't use me as an excuse, you had a choice. I'm like, no, she literally did not. She did not. She was a child being influenced by her mother. Like, no. I hate it so much because, like I said, I do understand being upset at what Grace did because it is wrong, but the fact that no one, not even Jessie, has an ounce of understanding for her just pains me so incredibly much. We have Thomas, Christopher, and Alistair researching paladins in the Institute library, where we have a moment between Alistair and Thomas when Christopher is away for a little bit. They do a little make out, and like, That's why I'm like, if you're gonna include Persian, let's just put the translations right next to it just for me, because like Alistair says something in Persian to Thomas, and then afterwards he's like, oh no, this is not something we're doing. I'm like, I want to know what he said in Persian. I need to know for my own sanity. And then they go to, and then the others besides Matthew is off helping Ariadne with the paper stings that they found at Ariadne's house from the Inquisitor. And then Ariadne, Anna, Lucy, Jessie, James, and Cordelia are off to Tachana's old house researching that, and they come across a demon, which should not be a surprise that there was still a demon hidden in that place. But they also found this like kind of mirror thing and Tachana's like notes and diary. So there's gonna be important information there. And then Cordelia goes to the Hell Rule because she thinks Matthew is there, and she first has a talk with Hypatia Vex, and she is like, oh, you're a paladin of a demon, that means you're like the most powerful shadow hunter that could ever be, you should take advantage of this. And she also teaches her a way to summon demons. And then she actually comes across Matthew, and Matthew actually tells her that he has been trying to stay sober and has been sober for a day, and he's just violently ill, and he doesn't want Cordelia to see him like this, and like sends her away while he goes home. And he also mentions that he tried to stay sober in Paris, but he was so sick and he felt like he couldn't be the support that Cordelia needed at the time. She does do something good because she does send messages to all the merry thieves that Matthew needs their help, which the only good thing that Cordelia has done this entire book. Jessie and James have a little heart-to-heart, which is nothing important. Ariadne and Anna go back to like Ariadne's parents' place to retrieve Ariadne's powers. Look at that beautiful illustration. Afterwards, they also have this conversation where Anna is like, hey, would you maybe want to be called another name, because Ariadne was a name given to you by people who have like this bad expectation of you. And she's like, I would love to be called Awadi because it is a first bad mother's name, and it also like the meaning behind it means something to her. And then she says it could be shortened to Ari, which is a nickname that has come with Ariadne for this use as well. So it is like a way of respecting her biological family as well as her adoptive family, while still creating her own person and like letting go of those expectations that were put on her in the past. And I love it. And what I love even more is that Anna and Ariadne, or Awadi, I should say it correctly, Anna and Awadi have this little moment, and all the merry thieves are arriving at Matthew's house, and they have established this plan to take care of him, which is all very, very sweet. And then in the morning, Thomas is woken up by Alistair, who needs a walk, and there he runs into Alistair in front of his own door, because Alistair knows what it's like to deal with drunk people. So he just wanted to check in, but like kind of lost his nerve to go in because he knows like the merry thieves aren't the biggest fan of him. And he also tells Thomas that he's moving. So, and Thomas is, that's just a really heartbreaking scene. Alistair, you're only doing this to yourself. And we also have this scene at the Cornwall Institute with a mate from the institute going over to Tachana, and Tachana is basically like, I would want to see my children, like why can I not see my children, which is a bit concerning. I don't know why, but I find that very odd. And then we have Cordelia being the absolute dumbass that she is, and she decides to go to the place where her father was killed and summon demons, and of course way more demons show up than she was expecting. And then James actually luckily followed her and like kills the demons, and he gets mad at her, and she's like, how dare you get mad at me, like I knew what I was doing. It's like, no bitch, you did not know what you were doing. Stop. She's so stupid, like so stupid. I hate it. But then they do have a moment together that gets interrupted by someone being at the door, and that someone is Jessie. And Jessie said he found something, and Jessie found in the notes of his mother, of Tachana, that the mirror that they found also can be used to communicate with Belial or spy on him without him knowing. And they've set up a meeting with the rest of the crew to discuss this new information. And yeah, that's where we left off. As you can tell, we had less venting needed to be done, but I'm still really mad at James and Cordelia. Hi, another update time, another 100 pages. I am like getting in the end stretch because I have like 170 pages. No, wait, 270 pages left. A lot has happened in these pages. Not much I have to comment on though. Okay, so they try the mirror to see if they can spy on Belial, and like James sees stuff, but not really either. And then we go back to the Cornwall Institute that has been under attack. And next we have Christopher being like the sweetest little shit ever, visiting Grace when the Christmas party is going on because he doesn't want her to be alone. Grace also asks Christopher to bring Cordelia to her so she can confess to her what she did, which I'm glad that Cordelia is going to find out, but like I really desperately needed that to come from James, so that upset me. Thomas is recruited to bring a food basket to Alistair's mom, so of course he wants to do Alistair, and he convinces Alistair to go to the Christmas party with him, and I just so when we find out that Lucy kind of like goes into like a Shadow Realm-esque place whenever she kisses Jessie, which is odd. I have to say, just an odd dynamic. They decided to message Malcolm Fate about it, and Malcolm has come with an answer, and that's that, you know, her powers are tied to Belial, and because she raised Jessie, she went into like a deeper depth of her powers, and that this is probably like a link between her and Belial, a way that she can see him or communicate with him. So of course Malcolm is like, don't touch Jessie, that's dangerous, until we figured this out. Of course that doesn't happen. And then at the Christmas party, James takes Cordelia alone and shows her that he hid a note in the necklace that he gave her, basically confessing his feelings. So that's like proof that he's been in love with her all this time, you know. And then Ari and Anna are getting on the dance floor together, and it's amazing. Cordelia talks to Matthew and gently lets him down. Lucy's being annoying by telling Jessie what Malcolm told her because she's afraid how he will react, because it's a connection with Belial and he was possessed by Belial, so like she's afraid. I'm like, honey, he always knew you were connected to Belial. We know that. We've been new. That's nothing new. So why are you so being annoyed about it? But to be fair, she did still tell him that night. Thank God. And then Tatiana invades the party. It's not fun because she basically attacks Alexander Lightwood, who is a little baby. I actually don't know his age, but like he's a very small child. And of course, that makes nobody happy. And she goes on this tirade about how no one has ever helped, and the Lightwoods and the Herondales are the bane of evil. And she's like, and I can prove that to you because Belial is Tessa's grandfather, and none of you knew that, huh? That's so suspicious, huh? Except it's not, but oh well. So she basically like implied that they've been in cahoots with Belial the entire time, and she also reveals that James and Lucy have had powers all along, which... And then Tatiana vanishes with Alexander, and it's not fun. And of course, the adults are gathered to discuss the next action to try and find Alexander. And Jesse's like, you know, I have an ID, but let's not tell the adults just in case I'm warned, so they can still like keep looking, which is actually smart of him to do that. But he does end up being right and ends up being in the Lightwood's home where Alexander's at, and there's a lot of demons there as well, and you have to fight. But they rescue him, and it's great. And Tatiana's finally captured by the Silent Brothers. Great. And the next day there is this meeting of the Clave to discuss the Herondale's heritage. And at first Cordelia doesn't want to go because she can't bear it, because she's selfish. And it's not until Alistair tells her that, you know, it would be bad if James's wife didn't show up to a hearing about if the Herondales are terrible people or not, that she's like, oh, would people really think that? How dare they? Of course they would think that. Oh my god, how stupid can you be? So yeah, the trial goes awry because the Inquisitor has had beef with the Lightwoods and the Herondales. We know that. We don't know why, but we do know that that's a thing going on. And it does also mention that Charles was... This is what it says. To Cordelia's surprise, Charles rose to his feet. This is not a tribunal. Tribunal? He said, his face looking strained as if some unseen force were pulling his skin too tight. This is a meeting we are holding to decide what our next step will be. And he had not stopped speaking. He turned to look around the room, his mouth a hard line. I'm the only one of my family who will have the courage to say it, he said, but the Inquisitor was right. Which, has confirmed to me that Charles is the one being blackmailed. And then, like, at this trial, when they're taking like a break, I think Christopher decides to take Cordelia apart and is like, come with me, there's something you must know. And they're going to see Grace, obviously. And then we have a fight between Arya and her father, which is chef's kiss, so good. And then we go to Grace, where Christopher arrives, and she's like, I did not expect you to come here. He's like, I do not blame you for what your mother's doing, which is great. And he also says, and this is, I wish more people had realized this, he says, what she did was vile, but you are not vile. You have done wrong, but you're trying to make it right, and such trying is not easy. Christopher, honey, you're the only person who thinks that way. I love you so much for that. And of course, he brings Cordelia in. We then go to Thomas, who sees Matthew disappear and runs after him, and Alistair goes along, and they find Matthew at his apartment, and Thomas is being amazing and like dumping all the liquor that he still has in the house out of the window, because like, this is not the way we're doing this is not the way you're actually gonna get over this. And I think it's great. And Matthew also posted a theory that the Inquisitor is blackmailing Charles, and he like shows Thomas and Alistair everything that has been going on, telling them and stuff like that, and they decide to go talk to Charles, the three of them. So that's a great. And then we see James receiving a note from Cordelia to go to Curzon Street immediately, which I am assuming that Christopher actually sent that note, just from context we get later. And then we have a talk between Lucy and Jessie, and Lucy, the absolute dumbass she is like, hey, do you mind us making out so that I can go back into the Shadow Realm and like actually learn something? And of course, she does not learn something, but we do know that Belial saw her, so yeah. Then we go back to Cordelia, we find out everything from Grace, so running to James, and they kiss and make up, obviously. Look at the picture. And yeah, that's where I've left off. They're literally making out right now, so yay. Hi, I read another 100 pages of Chain of Thorns. Look at it actually looking like I'm almost done with this book. Shit has gone down, so let's get through it. So I left off with you, James and Cordelia were fucking. I mean, it is not explicit, but like that's what happened. And then we also know that Will and Tessa, together with like the adults basically, all going to Idris, because there will be a trial by mortal sword. And then the next day, everyone is going to the Institute to stay there because the adults are gone. I don't know why they actually decided to stay at the Institute, but everyone's there. And James tells them about everything that happened, which I hate this scene so much. But before it happens, we learn that Charles has taken charge of the Institute, which James also gets mad at. I'm like, yeah, who else? I get it that you're a bit mad because Charles has taken Witchdog's side, but like, he is the most logical person to be taking over the Institute while Tessa and Will are gone. Like, what? Why are you shocked? And then we also have a moment with Grace where her mom has broken out of her cell and gone to hers, and like, Grace warned him about it, and like, I get that the Silent Brothers are like, oh yeah, nobody could break out of their cell because it hasn't happened before, but like, you know, Tajana's done a lot of things that are impossible, so maybe you should have seen this coming. Like, afterwards, like, Cordelia and James also tried to have a conversation with Matthew separately, and this is just Cordelia and James being like selfish motherfuckers, because the conversation starts and like Matthew's like, no, I know what you want to talk about, it's fine, like, I don't want to talk about it. And you're like, no, we're gonna talk about it, we need to talk about it. I'm like, no, leave this poor man alone. And then after that conversation, Thomas, Alistair, and Matthew go to confront Charles, where Charles is being a bit of a dickrat. And I understand that the whole blackmail situation is very difficult for him, but he's like hiding behind these very lame excuses. And then they're all like having dinner together, and besides Charles, he is in the room with them, and eventually he comes in dragging along Grace. And here's another moment of just Charles being a dickwad, is that Grace is there and she looks very like worn down, and everyone's like, wait, how did you escape the Silent City? That is not supposed to happen. And he's like, and she is like, oh, you know, Tatiana did something. Everyone is like, okay, she might be correct about this, so let's you're allowed. Besides Charles, who's like, no, Diana is locked away in the Silent City and she's just trying to cover up a way to explain how she escaped from it. And I'm like, if Grace can escape from from the Silent City, you have no issue with believing that, right? Then how come you can believe that Diana can escape the same place? So what happened is that earlier in the book I mentioned that the Inquisitor, Witchtalk, that he went to the Citadel, the Iron Citadel, is that what it's called? I always forget. And there he was at the Iron Gates that lead to, like the Iron Gates, he was at the gates that lead to the Iron Tombs, where all the Iron Brothers and Iron Sisters are buried. And before he could like reach in there, he got the voice of Belial in his head to like warn him to stay away from Tatiana. That's what happened, we know that. And now Grace is over here reporting that she saw in the Silent City there were Iron Brothers and Sisters, but they looked weird and they had like this green glowy eyes. And we also earlier saw that Belial sent out an army of demons that are like demons that possess people. And it took these dumb fucks like literally a whole long explanation until they figured out that what happened is that these demons possessed the Iron Brothers and Sisters that were buried in the Iron Tomb, because obviously that's what happened. It took them a really long time to figure out, but they figured it out, so that's something. And then of course, right when they figure out that Tatiana is there with what she calls Watchers, which are the creatures, like the demons in the bodies, but we're calling them Watchers from now on, so that's a thing. After the talk with Charles, the talk with Charles about the blackmailing, Thomas and Alistair also went on a carriage ride because Alistair was just a bit overwhelmed by that conversation. And you know, they have a heart-to-heart, and like, look at that. They kiss and make up, as I say. Right as they're actually making out, the carriage driver ends up walking out of the carriage and like acting weird, so shit goes down. But before that, we have a little flash to the battle with Tatiana, where Cordelia is being stupid because they're all inside and they're like, we shouldn't go, it's a trap. And then they're like, wait, but like those Iron Sisters and Iron, like the Watchers, basically, because they are Iron Sisters and Iron Brothers, like dead, but like they're still dead, they're shadow hunters and they can enter the Institute. So if we don't go outside, they'll come inside. So they come up with this plan of like going outside and having James and Jesse kind of confront Tatiana, and then when shit goes down, everyone is like right behind the door so they can also storm around and fight. And Cordelia's like, I know I can't bear weapons, but I'll go with you because I'm Lilith's paladin and Tatiana will be scared of me, even though I'm not doing anything and I'm in danger by having no weapons and not wanting to fight. And she insists on still going out there with James and Jesse doing the initial confrontation because she really is that stupid. And yet we have the battle that's going terribly. At a certain point, Tatiana like swings a blade towards Cordelia, but Christopher like jumps in a way to protect her, and then he gets stabbed in the shoulder, which I told you that Cordelia going out there without weapons was stupid. Here's the proof. And after that, basically Grace finds Lucy and it's like, there's one thing you can do to stop this because we're never gonna win this fight. And Lucy raises like Tatiana's husband / Jesse's dad, Rupert, from, not necessarily from the dead because he's still a ghost, but like he brings like the ghost in that situation. And then his ghost is really just like, what are you doing? Like, Tatiana's like, oh, this is my revenge for your dad. And he's like, no, what are you doing? He basically just like tells her off and she gets mad and screams and leaves. And then luckily all the Watchers also stop. That was a risk. And then Lucy again does a really stupid thing where she can feel that she's like exhausted and she can't hold on Rupert very long. But she's still like, oh, I should have Jesse have a conversation with his father because otherwise he'll be mad at me. I'm like, bitch, no. Take care of yourself. We're in a war. Focus. Cordelia and Grace went after Tatiana because why wouldn't they? And Grace first confronts Tatiana, but of course nothing comes out of that. And then Cordelia basically sends Grace away and like, I will fight. And she takes a weapon. And look at this epic illustration. Like, I know we're not a fan of Lilith, but this looks epic. And she ends up killing T'Challa against her own will, like Lilith forced her to. And he was like, no, I'm not gonna kill her, I'm gonna give mercy. And I'm like, are you fucking stupid? This is never gonna end if you keep her alive. Like, the only way I can understand not wanting to kill someone in story sometimes because it will lower yourself to the level, but this is not the moment. We know that capturing T'Challa is never gonna work. It has not worked for 3 books now. So the only way to stop her is to kill her. That's genuinely the only way. So you don't get to sit on your moral high horse right now because it's not working. So thank God for Lilith in this case. That's the only time you'll ever hear me say that, but you heard it anyway. And then Cordelia gets back. Cordelia and Grace get back to the Institute at the same time as Thomas and Alistair arrive back there. And we also learn that Christopher is dead, which Cassandra, Clare, the way you wrote that was abysmal, because when he first gets the stab wound, this explain, like, they're like, oh, this is just like a shallow wound, it's nothing bad, we can fix this. And then all of a sudden we go away for a couple of pages, and then we come back and he is dead, and it's like, oh yeah, the blade was poisoned, so now he's dead and we can't do anything about it. I'm like, that's the worst written death scene I have ever read in my entire life. And you know, Christopher is my precious. I love him very much. I did not shed a single tear at his death because it was just so poorly written. But as they are kind of like grieving Christopher, except not really because they don't really get the time to, but like they explain to Alistair and Thomas what happened, and Thomas and Alistair explained what they saw, because London all of a sudden has gone very misty and very quiet and weird. After they've had their explanations, Charles arrives back because he went off to the Silent City to check if Grace's story was correct, which ended up being pointless because we saw the results anyway immediately after we left. He went with like a bunch of Khalif people, and they came back, and turns out that the Silent City was taken over, obviously, and there were like shitload of demons there, and they returned because there were just too many they could never fight off. So there we go. Before they can make a decision, Belial shows up because he has possessed humans, and basically there's this large group of humans that he has mind control to go to the Institute together with some of the Watchers, and he is just like going one by one because it don't last like longer than 5 minutes. And basically he is like, I want London and London only, and so I have shut it off from all like portals, airways. I guess airways in this time wouldn't be a thing, but like, you know, it's shut off. No one can come in and out of London except if I want them to. And he wants the city and nothing else. And he will be in control of everyone there, but he will leave the rest of the world alone if they let him have it. And you're like, you have 36 hours for the Shadowhunters that are here to escape if they want to. If they don't want to, I'll be taking them over anyway. And then he also wants James to go with him to Edom to kind of like negotiate the terms of him being able to possess James, which they agree to. So that's the thing that happens. And then Matthew ends up going with James. I don't exactly understand how that happened, but that is a thing that happened. Then we get this weird intermission grief in which no grieving actually is being done. Then something I don't like is that from this point on we only get Cordelia's perspective basically. Like, I want to be with James and Matthew, I'm curious about them, I don't care about what they're doing. But basically the Shadowhunters have decided to leave in these 36 hours, take that opportunity that was presented to them, except a group of friends. They don't want to because they want to try and rescue James and Matthew, obviously. So they do like this little ruse so that they're like distracted until the portal closes and like, whoops, we couldn't join, which is so stupid because why wouldn't you just tell them like, no, we're not going? It's that simple. So then they are putting out a plan, basically doing what we're gonna do, and they divide it up so that, let me see, so Arya and Anna will be going looking for potential magical ways in and out of London that Belial missed. Grace and Jesse work on the fire messages that Christopher started on so that they can continue messages with Idris and stuff like that. And then Alistair and Thomas go do research on like Watchers and basically how they can maybe defeat them. And Cordelia and Lucy are going to look into Downworlders and see if they can maybe help them with the situation that's going on. Which then of course we see Lucy and Cordelia go to Hell Ruel and potential to see Malcolm, and Malcolm isn't here, but they do find that the Downworlders that are there are very much in like a similar possession as the humans are. And Malcolm on his desk also had like real necromancy research, and Lucy gets upset over that because of course she does, because she thinks like, if you say something to me, You have to keep that promise. No one can ever lie to me because I'm the best. I hate these characters. Is it obvious? I have 170 pages left, and I think I'll just read this all in one go and then update you. Hi, welcome to another update. I have finished the book, so let's first recap what happened. So where we left off, Lucy told Cordelia about how she's been seeing stuff from Belial when she kisses Jesse. So that's something. And then Cordelia gets a stupid ID. We don't know what the ID is. She just says that it's a bad ID and that will probably put her in danger, but James is not there to stop her. So that's concerning if that's the only thing to stop you. And we got a perspective from James and Matthew in Edom, which they're basically just in prison. There's not much there. And then Cordelia asks Alistair for Cortana back, and it was just hidden in the weapons room, which is so genius but so stupid at the same time. And Lucy and Cordelia end up going to a graveyard in the middle of the night where she raises Cortana, which brings Lilith to the place, and like Cordelia starts making like orders and trying to bargain with Lilith, and Lilith's like, you have no power over me, I can do whatever the fuck I want. And Lucy is, well, you bet. And she just raises a bunch of the dead in the form of a pentagram around Lilith, so she's bound. That I don't know if that's technically how things work. But oh well, Cassie's having a blast, I guess. And basically Cordelia makes the bargain of with Lilith, like, you bring me and Lucy to Edom so we can go kill Belial, and then when he's killed, you'll let me go and you'll leave my loved ones alone as well. So that's a thing. They go to Edom, basically. And then Alistair and Thomas go out to try and learn things about the Watchers, and they get in a fight with one, and Thomas gets seriously injured, but they do learn that they have this symbol on their necks that is like kind of a mix between the sigil of Belial and something else, and that's what's connecting the demons to the bodies. So if they strike that or like remove, like injure that in any way, that symbol, the demons will disconnect from the bodies and die basically. And I and Anna figure out this way to go into the Silent City because they realize that the Silent City used to be at a different spot in London, or like the portal to it was in a different spot in London before like the big fire in London. So they decide to see if they can still use, as that's still like a gateway that can be used, and if so, if they can reach, like, what is it called, a path of death or something like that, basically the same way like the Watchers came in. They are planning to go out, have that in a way to get out of London and go to Idris and get more shadow hunters to fight, because we need the help. And then Matthew also tells James about what happened with his mom and dad, and like the reason why he kind of turned to alcoholism in the first place. And basically Matthew starts having seizures in the prison because his withdrawal, and James tries to put a Watsies on him, and it's not working because they are in a demon realm, obviously. But then he concentrates really hard and it does work. And then Grace figures out that, well, at first she's working on the nose and it's like not working out, and she's getting distressed about it. And then Christopher's ghosts appear for some reason, and he's like, you can do this, I know you can do this, and that's all he does. That's genuinely all he does. He does not help in the slightest. It does work because Grace does figure it out, and it turns out that she also has to put like a communication rune on these telesteles. I don't know how to pronounce that word. I should, but I don't. So that's the thing. And then she figures it out. And in the meantime, Ari and Anna have gone off to try and see if that's still a gateway. They take Oscar with them, who is Matthew's dog, and they figure out that if it is the case, they'll send Oscar back so that the other characters know that they have figured it out to get to the Silent City, and they can start sending notes to the people to know to go to the place, which, you know, coincidence that Grace just figured it out right in time to do that. Thomas has been on a sickbed ever since the fight with the walkers, which hasn't been long. But while he's on a sickbed, Alistair and he have like this little love confession to each other, and it's cute. And then the next day, Belial comes back to the prison. Like, he has been there to taunt him a couple of times, but how he's there. And James is like, okay, fine, you can possess me. Because he and Matthew have come up with a plan. We don't know the plan, but we know that they've come up with a plan. That's the thing. Grace and Jesse have been sending off fire messages to everyone in interest and like all the different institutes and stuff. And in the meantime, Thomas and Alistair have been on the roof for some reason, and there they also have another heart-to-heart to make sure that the previous heart-to-heart was like serious, and of course it was. Because why would it have changed? But while they were having this heart-to-heart, they noticed that all of the walkers all of a sudden gathered and like going in the same direction, which is not a thing they've been doing. They've just been wandering aimlessly, kind of. So it's suspicious. So they go after that. That's what I'm trying to say. And then Cordelia and Lucy find Matthew after James has left and been possessed by Belial, of course. And they go through a portal that's in the castle of Edom, and they end up in London. Like Belial and James can communicate in his brain, even though like Belial is the only one actually doing stuff. And here immediately Belial starts talking about like taking over the rest of the land, and like you just promised the Shadowhunters that you were only gonna stay in London, and like I knew that was bullshit, but like that was quick. And as they are at Westminster's Abbey, I believe. Westminster's Abbey, yes. And Thomas and Alistair have also arrived there, and Thomas at first, the dumbass that he is like, oh, this is James, the James I know. He's not possessed at all. And Alistair has to tell him like, no, he's possessed. And I'm like, stupid. Everyone's stupid. And like Belial basically wants to crown himself the king of London, which fine, that's something we're doing. And then we all find out that it will go back to Ari and Anna, and we know that everything worked, and there was a bunch of people and Edris were ready to come true. And we also find out that Sana had the baby. And we also know Charles stood up, and the trials have gone well, but there were still questions because Jesse being alive came out during the trial as well, so there's still some questions there. And we also find out that Charles stood up in the middle of the trial and called out the Inquisitor's blackmail, and he also came out, so that's something. And then like Grace has also sent a fire message to Anna telling him to go to Westminster Abbey because that's where shit is going now. Matthew, Cordelia, and Lucy arrive at the place, and Thomas tells them what happened, what's going on, and he also tells them about the symbol. He shows them the symbol and like, strike that, and they're dead. And Lucy's like, oh shit, I recognize that symbol, and like her in a monologue because of course she wouldn't say anything. And she says, I have to talk to Jesse, and like wills off. And I'm like, it takes 5 seconds to explain this to your friends. Do that instead of just like running off like an idiot. And of course the crew is doing their best to get Cordelia as close to Belial as possible because that's the point. And then I hate that this is how this magic worked, but when Lucy finds Jesse and Grace were together, she basically says, I don't believe being with you makes me closer to Belial, more vulnerable to him. I think because of what happened to you, it makes me closer to the other side, where souls go, the ones who don't linger here. So she thinks that by kissing him, she can go to like the place where the spirits of the Iron Sisters and Iron Brothers are, which she said earlier that she can't reach. But like we literally, and the last vision, you literally came face to face with Belial. So like how does that make sense at all? Plot holes in this book are so many. So she makes out with Jesse. Why is that the way the magic works? Why can't they just like hold hands or anything? Why do they constantly have to be making out? Because this is such an inappropriate moment for that to be happening. But it happens, and then Lucy ends up giving this whole speech to the spirits of like, we know the bodies were taken from you, like go fight back, expel the demons from your bodies, and we'll promise we'll kill the demons, and you'll and it works. But, and then Cordelia and Belial have a talk that leads to nothing. And then at a certain point, Cordelia thinks James's voice is actually coming true, and he says, give me Cortana, which he does, and then he stabs himself. Fun times. And then Ari and Anna are fighting in battle, have a little love confession. You know how things go. And then of course Belial dies, but like James's body ends up like limp on the ground, and Cordelia like feels his pulse, and there's still a pulse, so fun times. So yeah, then basically everything is solved except Lilith, because Lilith shows up, and she's like, oh, you done good, now we're gonna do so much more shit together. And Cordelia's like, no, you promised me you would let me go if I killed Belial. And Lilith is like, ooh, but loophole, you didn't kill him, James did. And then he's like, well, I said that it had to be that Belial had to be killed by my blade, not by me. technically that still happened. And then it's like, oh, boo, and leaves. And then we have like this, which is called Coda, but I don't know what that means. But it's from Jem's perspective, and basically it's just a demon showing up, being like, hey, I'm Belial now, and if you leave me alone, I will leave you alone because I don't give a shit about the hair and nails. And Jem is like, okay, and that's it. Then we have the epilogue, and you skip to the summer. Some time has passed. So that's fun. Cordelia and Lucy are parabatized now, which finally, we've been talking about that for 3 books, and it finally happened. The Inquisitor Bridgestock has been stripped of his title, and he is supposed to be taking up the task of guarding the wards in Wrangel Island, which is a punishment we see as well in the Mortal Instruments. And his wife is divorcing him, which is great, because that means that Mrs. Bridgestock actually wants to be around Ari and be a supportive parent, which, again, great news. So we learned that everyone's basically going to travel, almost everyone, and now they're all basically burying Jesse's coffin and like throwing something in there to try and let go of their past. And we also learn here that Lucy's ability to command the dead and James's ability to go into the shadow realm disappeared with the death of Belial, which I have questions, because we know that when a demon dies, their children's powers don't disappear. So like the warlocks still are warlocks, like nothing about that changes. And I'm assuming that James and Lucy have their powers because Tessa as their parents was like a, you know, 2nd generation warlock kind of deal, you know? So why does it disappear for them when Belial dies but not for Tessa? That doesn't make sense to me. I have so many questions. And they're all talking and having fun and having like a picnic kind of thing. And that's kind of it. And then we do have a little bonus story at the end that is basically just Cordelia and Lucy becoming parabatized, and that's the book. I don't know if it's obvious from this video, but I didn't like this book at all. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. This is probably my least favorite Shadowhunters book that I've ever read, because this is definitely the first Shadowhunter book that actively made me angry while reading it. I also gave Clockwork Angel, is that the first book in the Imperial Devices? I also gave that 2 stars when I read it, but that was just because I was so incredibly bored by it. I was not the kid with this book at all. It was very entertaining, but it was terrible. God awful. I don't understand. And I do think that if I didn't have this like deep nostalgia and love for Shadowhunters, this could have been a 1 star, because I still have moments of love and enjoyment for this book, because I just have an attachment to everything in this. But I also just like, I roll my eyes so many times while reading this book, because I don't like these characters anymore. I mean, I do. I still love Thomas, Alistair, Anna, Ari, Matthew. I still love them. I've never cared for Lucy and Jesse. Grace is kind of like midfield. Christopher's dead now, so who gives a fuck? And I really grew to hate James and Cordelia throughout this book, which I think is very obvious by this video. But I don't feel the same like love for this group of characters anymore and their friendships, because they constantly do shit to hurt each other, and like they're so selfish, and I can't bear it anymore. And I generally also think that this book was written by someone who was just giving short synopses of the first 2 books in the series, because there's so many plot holes in this, like so many things that do not make sense, and there's so many inconsistencies and plot holes with this book with the rest of the series that it was painful to read at times, because it also made characters seem incredibly dumb, because I'm like, how are you not just like thinking of this properly? Because yeah. And then just the way things resolved, I thought it was very boring, very repetitive, and therefore I wasn't a fan of this book. Like I said, there were some quiet moments that do have me fangirling, but that's just because of the attachment to this world that I already have, because otherwise it definitely would have been a 1 star. Like, shit, this is bad. And it's such a disappointment to me, because I genuinely wanted to like it. If you also wanted an annotation update, this is it. If you wanted a character guide update, this is it. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you on next time.